Hello, welcome to this talk on the biochemistry course at Oxford University. I'm Dr. Mark Wormold. I'm one of the Associate Directors of Undergraduate Teaching here, which means I help run the course, and in particular quite a significant part of the first year course. And I'm also the admissions coordinator for biochemistry. So the first 3 years of the biochemistry course are really quite similar to bachelor's courses in biochemistry at other universities. One of the aims of these first 3 years is to give you a good grounding across the whole of the subject. However, what we're really trying to do during the first 3 years is to teach you how to think like a biochemist. How would a biochemist approach a complex system or a complex problem? If you're trying to solve a complicated problem, how would you break that down into smaller, manageable problems? How could you design experiments which would then give you insight into those smaller, manageable problems? And finally, and possibly most importantly, how would you interpret the data that those experiments provide in order to give you further insight into the problem that you're trying to solve? So the first year of the course is split into 5 smaller courses, if you like, which cover the entire breadth of biochemistry. We have the physical biochemistry course, and this deals with the rules of chemistry and physics, which underpin and constrain all of the processes that are going on within biological systems. And it also covers some of the techniques that we'll use to study biochemical systems. Mechanistic biochemistry course focuses on the properties of biological molecules and macromolecules and the sort of reactions that they undergo, be that as simple organic reactions through to complicated enzyme mechanisms. The molecular biochemistry course focuses on DNA and RNA and the storage of information in these molecules and how that information is then retrieved and how the processes that underlie all of that are controlled. And then the cellular biochemistry course focuses on how all of these different reactions and processes that are going on within the cell are integrated in order to produce cellular structures and cellular functions. Research in biochemistry, well actually as research in all sciences, is now very quantitative. And so the quantitative biochemistry course aims to provide you with the maths and statistics that you need, which really underpins studying all the other 4 courses. At the end of the first year, there are then exams in all 5 of these areas. These are pass-fail exams, the idea being to ensure that all students are up to speed across the whole subject before they start the second year. And these exams don't then count towards your final degree result. So if, because of your educational background, you struggle a bit at the beginning of the year, as long as you're up to speed by the end of the first year, it has no effect. So second and third years are also split into 5 courses. And again, this covers the entire breadth of the subject, right away from trying to understand the way that biological molecules behave at the level of atoms, right the way through to cellular development and cellular differentiation and the way that cells and cellular processes respond to the environment, what's going on outside the cell. You have to cover the core material in all 5 of these areas, but you get some choice about which topics in each area you then choose to go into in more depth. The third year ends with the Part 1 exams, so this is examining really on the first 3 years of the course. And those exams will go to make up around about 57% of your final degree result. So in terms of what it's actually like being a student studying biochemistry, the core of the course in the first 3 years is lectures. And to be perfectly honest, this is true of all science courses at pretty well all universities. A lecture is a wonderful way of simply delivering information. The lecturer has gone off and spent a long time working out what you need to know about a particular topic, and then packages it up and delivers it to you in a nice 1-hour unit. Lectures are entirely voluntary, and all students go to all of them. And to be perfectly honest, you'd be a bit foolish if you didn't. So typically there are 2 lectures a day, so that's about 10 hours a week is spent on lectures. So the next component of the course is the practicals. Obviously, biochemical research, this is a practical subject, so we've got to teach you this. The most important thing is actually how to teach you how to operate safely within a laboratory. But we're also trying to teach you how to think about experimental data, so that when you're doing your practicals, we're encouraging you to think about the way the experiment is designed, what that means about sources of systematic error or random error, how those errors then affect the way that you can interpret your data, and particularly so that you don't over-interpret or under-interpret your data. So some of the practicals are then lab-based. There are also computer simulation practicals, and there are also data handling practicals that will give you the experimental data and again ask you to analyse that. You typically spend 1 day a week in practicals. In the first year, it is 1 day a week. It's usually every Friday. In the second and third year, the practicals are rather longer. They may take 2, 3, 4 days, but you'll do one every 2, 3, 4 weeks. So again, it averages out about 1 day a week on practicals. We then get to tutorials and classes. Classes are what most universities think of as small group teaching. That's a group of 10, 12 students to a tutor. There's usually a worksheet to be done in advance, which you hand in, and then in the class you go through that worksheet. This is a very good way, particularly of teaching things like analysis of data or mathematical techniques. Tutorials, this is the part that where the colleges arrange the teaching. This is where what we think of as small group teaching. So in a tutorial, there will be 2 or 3 students in a room with a tutor, someone like me, for an hour discussing the work that you've done for the year. Tutorials are where we can make your education truly personal. So in lectures and in classes and practicals, we've designed the work in advance and aimed it at the average student. In tutorials, we really can focus on exactly what you as an individual want. So if you've struggled with a particular topic, we can go start with the very basics. If you found a particular area interesting, we can go into that in a lot more depth. We can go beyond the textbooks and talk about where research is going in this particular topic. And all of that is focused on what you as an individual student needs, rather than what you as a member of the whole biochemistry cohort needs. So in the first year, you'll typically have maybe 2 classes a week and 1 tutorial a week. In the second and third years, the number of classes tends to go down, and there's rather more focus on tutorials. The majority of your time is spent in independent study. So this would be doing class sheets. You might spend 3 or 4 hours doing a sheet for a class. You've got to write up your practicals and submit those. And then for the tutorials, in the first year you might be doing 15 hours a week to prepare for a tutorial. In the second and third year it might get to 30 hours a week or something like this to prepare for a tutorial. So given that you're spending a lot of time in independent study, you've got to be self-organised, you've got to be self-motivated. So typically in the first year, you might be spending about 23 hours a week in independent study. You add all that up, and hopefully you get a total of 40 hours per week. Now, in fact, the National Union of Students a few years ago did a survey of all the university students, and the students at Oxford, this is across all subjects, reported that they did about 45 hours of work a week. Now, that may sound like an enormous amount, 45 hours a week. This depends entirely upon whether you're enjoying the subject. Unfortunately, my kids are now past school age, but when they were at school, they would come back after school, and I would ask them, how long are you have homework to do? How long are you prepared to spend on your homework? And the usual answer was about 8.5 minutes. If I asked them how long they were prepared to spend on Facebook, YouTube, social media, 23 hours a day. So if you are doing what you enjoy, 40 hours a week is really not very much. If you're doing something you don't enjoy, then 40 hours a week is really, really difficult. So we then get on to the fourth year. The fourth year is a research intensive year, and it's what makes the course an integrated master's course. So the major component of this is a 23-week research project. So you join a research group, you're integrated into the research program of that group. You're doing experiments that, if you weren't there, would be done by a graduate student or a postdoc. It really is a proper research experience. And then that's examined by writing up a short dissertation and also giving a presentation on that. The other component of the fourth year is a review article. We ask you to review the literature of an area of biochemistry, focusing on the last couple of years and how that area has moved forward over the last couple of years and where that area is going in the next couple of years. And again, that's assessed by submitting your review article. Those two together make up your part 2 examinations, and those form around about 43% of your final degree result. And just to prove that the part 2 is proper research, every year we have 10 or 15 papers that come out of the department where a part 2 student's name is on the paper because they have contributed experiments to that publication. It may be that the paper doesn't come out for 3 or 4 years until after you leave, because it may take that research program 3 or 4 years to get to the stage of actually solving a problem and being able to publish it. Just every so often, very rare, students manage to actually get a publication out before they've even submitted their dissertation, as in these 2 cases, but that's, I have to admit, very rare. And then finally, this is a brief summary of what students go on to do after they leave university. To be perfectly honest, I don't think you should really be focusing on this. It's very tempting to think of a degree course as leading you onto a particular career, but that's not really the way to think about it. A good degree result in any subject will create opportunities for you, not only within that subject, but within lots of other areas as well. And in fact, most employers and graduate supervisors really aren't interested that much in the subject that you've studied at university. What they're interested in is that you have excelled at what you have studied, that you've done it really well. Because if you've excelled at what you've studied, they will have confidence that you can come and excel for them and whatever they want to give you to do. If you haven't excelled at university, they're not really going to have confidence that you can then excel at their job. And the way that you excel at university is really very simple. It's to choose the course that you enjoy. Because if you are enjoying it, you'll work harder, and therefore you'll do better. So please, if there's a take-home message from this talk, please, when you're filling out your UCAS form, choose courses that you think you will really enjoy. Choose them at universities where you think you will enjoy living and socializing, because if you are having fun, you'll work harder. If you work harder, you'll get a better degree result at the end of it. And at the end of the day, it is that really good degree result that will open doors for you in the future. So I hope this has been informative, and thank you very much indeed for listening.